On that fateful hunting night, the car moved like an animal in the oppressive silence of the woods, the stillness thick with unspoken tension. Ryan and Alan, though together in the cramped vehicle, seemed to occupy two entirely separate worlds. The hum of the engine and the quiet rustle of the trees outside did little to soothe the uneasy silence that hung between them. The occasional chirp of crickets and the soft whisper of leaves dancing in the breeze seemed like distant echoes to them both. Alan, positioned behind the wheel, was anything but calm. His grip on the steering wheel was tight enough to turn his knuckles pink, the muscles in his forearms taut with strain. Sweat clung to his forehead in beads that caught the dim light of the dashboard, glistening like tiny droplets of fear. His breath was shallow, his chest rising and falling with each labored inhale. There was a palpable anxiety in his every movement, a sense that something, some dark, intangible thing, was hovering just beyond the veil of the night. The air inside the car felt thick and stifling, pressing in on them from all sides. His lip quivered, a subtle tremor betraying the depths of his unease, as though a presence, invisible but heavy, had seeped into his very bones. Ryan, ever perceptive, could feel the weight of his discomfort, his anxiety rippling in the space between them. She wasn't sure what it was, but something felt wrong. Her instincts, honed over years of navigating situations that always seemed to tread a fine line between danger and misfortune, were screaming at her. The unease that prickled at the back of her neck deepened into something more tangible, something ominous. The invitation from the group of well-off, well-meaning white kids in the shadows of the night had seemed harmless enough at first, a chance for adventure, maybe even a break from the monotony of her own life. But now, as the car hummed along the winding road, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't simply on some innocent outing. This felt different. The scenario unfolding before her was steeped in something more sinister. Her mother's warnings, vague and cryptic as they had been, came rushing back to her mind. "Beware the kindness of strangers when night falls," her mother had always said. "When the warmth of their smiles can't be trusted, be ready for anything." Ryan had dismissed those warnings as a relic of overprotectiveness, chalking them up to generational fear and the nagging concern of a mother who had seen too much of the world's darkness. But now, as the miles passed and the shadows of the forest pressed in on them, Ryan understood the wisdom behind those words. This wasn't just a casual get-together. The shadowed figures that had extended their offer of friendship seemed to lurk just beyond the realm of her understanding, and she regretted not listening to the faint whisper of caution in her heart. The silence was finally broken by Ryan's voice, soft but filled with a deep concern. She turned toward Alan, reaching out to tap his arm gently. "Alan, are you okay?" she asked, her words thick with worry. She searched his face, hoping for some sign that he might open up, that he might let her in on whatever was troubling him. But Alan merely unbuttoned the top of his shirt, letting in a gasp of cool air. He didn't meet her eyes as he fumbled for the window, rolling it down with a quick motion that seemed almost too abrupt. Yeah, I'm just a little hot," he stammered, his voice strained and hollow, as if the simple act of speaking drained him further. His attempt to dismiss the tension with a simple explanation felt hollow, a paper-thin veil over the palpable anxiety suffocating them both. Ryan turned her attention to the outside world, her gaze wandering to the shadows beyond the window. There, in the distance, something stirred, a dark shape, moving silently between the trees. Her heart skipped a beat, a chill creeping down her spine, but she shook it off, blaming her racing mind for what might be an illusion. The forest at night had a way of playing tricks on her, of turning mundane shapes into ominous figures. But before she could quiet her thoughts, the car lurched suddenly to the left, jerking violently as though it were being pulled by some unseen force. The tires screamed against the asphalt, the sharp, jarring sound echoing in her ears. Panic surged through her, her breath hitching as the car swerved uncontrollably. Instinct kicked in, and she spun around to look at Alan, only to find his eyes squeezed shut, his hands slipping from the wheel as though paralyzed by something. Her heart slammed into her chest as she reached forward, grabbing the wheel with both hands, yanking it desperately to regain control. The adrenaline hit her like a freight train as she fought the pull of the car, her pulse racing. But Alan's body trembled violently, his muscles convulsing as if caught in the grip of something far beyond his control. Then, with an ear-splitting boom, the car was forced off course, crashing violently into a nearby tree. The impact was deafening, a cacophony of metal and glass shattering, followed by the piercing wail of the car alarm, a sound that seemed to pierce the very fabric of the night itself. Ryan's world spun, the crushing weight of the crash pulling her into unconsciousness. In the darkness that followed, she drifted in an abyss, her mind adrift in a sea of black. But amidst the void, a glimmer of light pierced the gloom, a soft, pulsing blue light. It flickered and danced, alive and vibrant, like a small, radiant flower blooming in the center of her soul. It spun and spiraled, brightening with each rotation, until it bathed the void in its warmth. As the light grew, so too did the words that followed it. Strange, melodic phrases, their meanings unclear but their power undeniable. Hoa neko el tuga, she whispered, the words flowing from her lips like an incantation, a soothing mantra in the midst of the darkness. The sound of her voice resonated through the void, echoing like the rhythmic pulse of some ancient magic. She repeated the strange words, the language unfamiliar yet comforting, each phrase slipping easily from her lips as if they were part of her very being. The warmth of the light surrounded her, seeping into her bones, the words filling her with a quiet strength that she hadn't known before. Her eyes fluttered open, blinking against the harsh contrast of the world around her. Her skin, once soft and warm, had taken on a dark, almost charcoal-like hue, absorbing the light that surrounded her as though it could never escape. Her tears evaporated almost instantly, leaving only streaks of woe behind. But then, she felt it, a presence. The air shifted. Her gaze flicked up, and there, standing directly before her, was the figure. A man, or something that had once been a man, tall and thin, his limbs elongated and twisted unnaturally, his back arched in a grotesque way, as though his very bones were contorted by some malevolent force. His skin absorbed the darkness around him, darker than the blackest night, as if it were made to kill the light whole. But it was his face that chilled her to the bone. There were no eyes, only voids where eyes should have been. And yet, she felt the weight of his gaze, like an invisible pressure bearing down on her. His finger, thin and graceful, rose and pointed directly at Alan. The silent communication between them was unbearable, the tension crackling in the air. Ryan's breath caught in her throat, and her body froze as she turned toward Alan, dreading what might come next. The sounds of frantic footsteps grew louder, each echo reverberating through the stillness of the woods, followed by the sharp wail of police sirens. She could hear them drawing closer, the police cars speeding toward them with urgency. But her focus was elsewhere, drawn toward the boy who had once been her companion, Alan. She shifted her weight, her body heavy with exhaustion, and turned her head to assess him. Her heart sank when she saw the only sign of blood, just a trickle from his forehead, staining the corner of his brow. It was a small wound, nothing serious, but still, it sent a chill down her spine. He was alive, but something about him felt wrong. The tension in the air thickened with every passing second. Her breath quickened as her gaze wandered downward, her focus shifting to her own body. A cold wave of panic surged through her chest. She froze for a moment, staring at the jagged piece of tree bark protruding from her abdomen. It jutted out grotesquely, its rough, splintered edges stained dark with her blood. The sight of it sent waves of nausea through her, and a sharp, searing pain shot through her when she instinctively reached to touch it. Her vision blurred for a moment, the world around her spinning as she tried to steady herself, but the urgency of the situation kept her tethered to reality. She forced herself to look away from her own wound, a deep, instinctual need to focus on Alan pushing her forward. The sounds of chaos grew louder as the police arrived in full force, their lights flashing wildly across the scene, casting a disorienting glow. Sirens wailed as the officers poured from their vehicles, moving with practiced urgency, their voices commanding and harsh. Amid the frenzy, Alan's brother burst into view. His heavy footsteps were accompanied by his frantic calls, and he moved with a wild energy, each step bringing him closer to the disaster unfolding before him. As the brother approached the wreckage, his eyes locked onto the car. Without hesitation, he flung open the door, only to be met with the horrific sight of Ryan slumped lifeless in the seat. Her body was motionless, the vacant, pale expression on her face more than enough to confirm what Alan's brother already feared. His brother was dead. The shock hit him like a physical blow, and for a moment, the world around him seemed to freeze. He looked around for any sight of his brother, but all around them was darkness. The officers and the brother didn't have time to dwell on the loss of Ryan. Their attention quickly shifted as one of them, a younger officer, swept his flashlight across the blackened woods. The beam of light landed on Alan, partially obscured by the shadows of the trees. "I found the boy," the officer called out, his voice ringing with a mix of urgency and relief. The words sliced through the tension in the air, and the brother, snapping out of his stupor, rushed toward Alan. His heart pounded in his chest, a wild cacophony of emotions drowning out everything else as he sprinted to the boy's side. The brother didn't hesitate. He grabbed Alan, pulling him into an embrace, his hands trembling as they locked around him. His voice broke, raw and desperate. "Bro, are you okay? What the hell were you thinking? What were you doing?" His words came out in a rush, as if each syllable was the only thing holding him together. His brother, his flesh and blood, was here, but something felt off. His grip tightened, shaking Alan as if that might pull him back to some semblance of reality. The officers, too, seemed momentarily distracted by Alan's appearance. They checked him quickly, ensuring he wasn't seriously injured, before turning their attention back to the grim scene with Ryan's lifeless body. But none of them noticed the subtle shift in Alan, how his eyes seemed to glimmer a different color than before, something strange, as though a different consciousness had taken root inside him. And then, without warning, Alan began to laugh. It wasn't the nervous, panicked laughter of someone barely clinging to their sanity. It was something altogether more unsettling. It was joyous, carefree, almost too exuberant for the swarthy crisis at hand. Alan threw his arms around his brother, his smile stretching unnaturally wide, the joy on his face too out of place, too foreign. "I'm okay, brother," Alan exclaimed, his voice filled with an enthusiasm that felt eerily disconnected from the tragedy surrounding them. The words came with such vibrancy, such force, that for a moment, it was almost as though everything else faded away. Alan's brother, disoriented and deeply confused, pulled back slightly, searching Alan's face for some sign of recognition, something that would tell him his brother was still in there, somewhere beneath the surface. But there was nothing. The boy before him wasn't his brother, not truly. What no one else knew, not even the gods, was that Alan was gone and there was only one soul in that body. What stood before them now was not the Alan they had known. Within that boy's body was the girl, Ryan, who had taken Alan's place that black night. She had taken his life, his name, his memories, his relationships, everything. She had lived in his world, seamlessly blending in as though she had always been Alan, hiding her true self from everyone around her. But beneath the facade, she wasn't just Alan. She had long felt the stirrings of something much deeper, something far older and far more dangerous. A strange, blue light flickered at the edges of her consciousness, invading her thoughts, seeping into her dreams. The light called to her, whispering of a power beyond understanding, a power that twisted reality itself. She began to write, compelled by the need to record the words that flowed into her mind, words that held the ability to alter the world around her. The magic she now possessed was unlike anything she had ever encountered. It was not a mere force, it was the essence of something divine, something that had been passed down through generations. She and those who came after her carried this legacy, this ability to shape reality with their words. But as the years passed, that magic faded, its vibrant power dimming into nothing more than a forgotten relic, a memory of a bygone era. Now, all that remained were fragile, yellowed pages, dusty and hidden in a brown box in an attic, waiting to be rediscovered by those who could bring it back to life. But for now, as she wore Alan's face and embraced his brother, the world was none the wiser. Alan's life, the life she had stolen, was dashed.